Now, from somewhere in beautiful downtown Burbank, NBC once more tries to prevent...
What happens when two bass road warriors spend quality time talking music and life with one of their peers? Bassist, educator, author David C. Gross and bassist and head honcho of KnowYourBassPlayer.com, Tom Semioli, trade dates with the legends of rock, jazz, funk, blues, folk, country, and more. Notes from an artist. Revealing conversations with the legends who've created the soundtrack of our lives. What happens? You're about to find out. It's another episode of Notes from an Artist.
Signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
David, welcome back to another episode of Notes from an Artist. I am your host, Tomaso Semioli. And David, who are you?
Well, I'm not a crook.
Well, that's a very good question. I've been asking my therapist, I've been asking my doctor, I've been asking the guy down the street who sells me croissants. And all I can tell you is I'm David C. Gross, and welcome to the new show.
Now, David, did you say croissants? I thought they were croissants.
Well, it's just if the crow flies, I'm telling you. No, it's a croissant.
You are such a Connecticut elitist.
Pinky in the air, croissant.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
Dennis, who owns the Ovens of France, I always say to him, hey, Dennis, can I have a little croissant with the butter? I'm talking about these enormous, it looks like Stonehenge of butter, and he's got this giant machete, and he's cutting pieces of butter off. I mean, it's like pieces of skin. It's amazing. However, his French roast is the best. I went in there yesterday, said, I'm out of coffee. He gives me a Ziploc bag full of beans. So it's great. It's great. It's a wonderful place in Connecticut, and yeah, there you go.
Please, you grew up on the Upper West Side. You don't say croissant on the Upper West Side, David.
No, you say bagel because there was H&H and Zabar's. Come on. Who ate croissants?
Who ate croissants?
But it's not just any croissant. I did not mention it's almond croissant.
Oh, it's a designer croissant.
And then have a little bit of croissant with your almond paste. Oh. So between the almond paste and the butter, I must have put on 50 pounds per croissant. I'm telling you.
What happened to your bagel and a schmear?
This area has the worst bagels.
Does it really? Why is that?
No Jews?
No Jews. It's a Jew-free area, that's why.
It really is. When I came in, the numbers went up.
A date which will live in infamy.
Oh, look, he doesn't have a tail.
What's the fucking matter with you?
Oh, my goodness. Our guest this evening is Pete Mason. Pete is a Renaissance man. That's a word that rhymes with croissant. He is an author, he's an entrepreneur, he's an arts and culture activist, and he is the publisher of NYS Music, which is the go-to news website. Do people still use the word website, David?
I'm not really sure.
Okay. Well, it's a digital newspaper. But anywho, if you are interested in music...
I don't think they use the word newspaper anymore, though.
Okay. It's a digital news platform.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
Anywho, if you're into music reviews, features, details on concerts, gigs, and music festivals in the great state of New York, If you are in a New York state of mind, David, then NYS Music is the place to go. They cover rock, jazz, classical, bluegrass, experimental blues. You know the blues, David. Folk.
I've had it.
You've had the blues dub. They reviewed my record and Spaghetti Eastern's record. Country, avant-garde. That's
Wait
your.
a second. They reviewed your record and not mine.
They haven't reviewed your record yet, but they will. I'm sure they will. 144
Guitar,
Experiments.
guitar.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll see.
We'll see if they review it. Reggae, soul, techno, disco.
It's really easy to delete a podcast, you know?
And permutations thereof. So we see that the state of New York has much to offer, David, and Pete shares his opinions on the state of the music business from the local to the national. And the really great thing that NYS Music does is they support local artists. And they're kind of like the Village Voice of New York State, when the Village Voice was the Village Voice.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing about New York is a lot of folks come here. They're expecting what happened in our generation with the 80s. It's not there. So some of them decide to stay in the state, and they move upstate where it's a little bit cheaper to raise a family. Of course, they have to come up with some places to play. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these places, someone walked in and said, "Hey, would you like to have live music?" And the club owner said, "Yeah." And then, of course, he says, "I'm not paying you." Then all of a sudden, people start showing up, and the bands get a little smarter than they have been in New York, and they say, "Well, we're not going to play unless you give us some money." And so upstate, they give them some money. In New York, of course, there are enough people who will just go on stage for nothing. And some of them are causing a great schism, which is causing part of New York's club downfall.
Well, the New York club downfall is occurring in New York City, pretty much. I mean, one of the interesting things, and we discussed this on the show, Peter mentioned, these are venues by artists for artists. So yes, they're going to get paid. Yes, they'll get a good meal. Yes, they'll have good backline. And yes,
And they'll get respected.
they'll get respect. There's an audience that wants to hear music. So it's a different, it's a whole different atmosphere. You and I have talked at length, and we talk about it on the show, how much we love playing in Hudson Valley.
Yes. However, the one thing I did miss from this interview, we didn't really get into the jazz scene out of the city. And I would have liked to have explored that a little bit more.
Yeah. Well,
we were
Peter,
able to get a
hopefully-
lot of the new rock bands and a lot of the jam bands and stuff of that ilk, which was great. But I would have liked to have found out, people like Joe Lovano, Steve Swallow, the late, great Jacques DeJohnette,
Paul
who
Barger.
probably saw it. It would be really nice to find out what's it like up there for the experimental scene and things of that ilk.
Yeah, well, the jam band does touch into that, the jam band scene. And yeah, Pete will certainly recommend to us one of his jazz writers. So we'll definitely go back to NYS Music. Just, and I have been saying it, the mainstream is the lame stream. And reading NYS Music, they turn you on to new music. Stuff I missed the first time around. One of the things I dig about NYS Music is they talk about archival releases. So it puts everything into perspective.
Yeah, and also in perspective, I must tell you, last night, Nan and I watched a Keith Richards documentary.
Okay.
And it was a very good documentary. There was a guy named Wolf Marshall who is like the precursor to Rick Beato.
Okay.
And some very, very interesting technical stuff about Richard's style. But what I found interesting was, now that you brought up the Village Voice, guess who they interviewed?
Who, David?
Robert Christgau. And there's a name we haven't really heard in quite a long time.
Yeah.
And in terms of the Village Voice, he was totally it.
Yes, him and Gary Giddens were really phenomenal writers.
Yeah.
And just on the music scene. And yes, well, have you read Keith Richards' Life? The book?
No, but I use it in weightlifting. It's better than having to use dumbbells.
You need to read that because it's all about his guitar playing. He explains his whole approach to the instrument. And that's why when we were kids playing Rolling Stones covers, they never sounded quite right because we didn't know that he was using alternative tuning, something you know very much about.
That's true. I've been alternately tuned for quite some time.
All right, before we bring Pete in, let's do the plugs. David, Notes from an Artist can be heard live on the internet radio every Monday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern on www.cygnusradio.com. And you just cue that up on the browser of your choice. You can also download the Cygnus Radio app on your computer. Wow. Or your mobile phone, David. So you have the freedom of choice when it comes to Notes from an Artist live. Did you know, David, that Notes from an Artist podcast is streaming right now on Apple, Amazon, Buzzsprout, Spotify, and wherever podcasts are propagated?
That is very true. However,
Yes.
as we add to that, something I found really, really very interesting. Did you know? I know this is shocking. We are in 149 countries, as well as 2,253 cities. Two of them I've never heard of before. Cordoba. Is that the Department of Redundancy
I
Department?
think so. I drove a Chrysler Cordoba in the 70s.
That's right. And real Corinthian leather, I'm told.
Yes.
But what makes Cordoba, I kid you not, that's really the name of the town and the location. They were downloading Cecil Taylor. So that's pretty bizarre. And then, have you ever heard of a town called Castel? Castel?
No, where is it, David?
It doesn't even tell us a state, a country, or anything. It's just Castel. And they, of course, the most recent download happens to be of last Freeform you and I did. Which is why I think that country's now being overthrown.
I think it's being attacked by the United States.
That's right. So there you have it. From United States to Czechia, to the Netherlands, to Germany, to Australia, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, better known as Holland. How come they're never called Hollish?
Good question. And are there the nether regions in the Netherlands?
I'm sure there's more than one. You've been to Amsterdam, I know.
I have, yes. Okay. All right, well, let's see what other plugs. Oh, yes, David, you might want to visit our YouTube page. That's right. We have interviews from some of our more high-profile guests. Ron Carter, Bill Wyman, Steve Vai, Joe Lynn Turner, Richard Thompson, Jaw Wobble, my hero, Phil Manzanera, Lenny Kaye, Glenn Matlock, Michael Day Barr, who's a very
Glenn who?
chap. Who's that? Glenn Matlock.
Matlock, okay.
Yes, what did I say?
Matlock.
Did I say Glenn Padlock? And, of course, our favorite guest of all time, David, who would that be?
Ian Anderson.
Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull.
Oh.
Hey, Aqualung. Na. Anyway, following the show, we have a playlist that was curated by Pete. Why not let him do the heavy lift? And you'll hear artists such as Grateful Dead, Fish, Billy Strings, Jimmy Buffet, Dirty Paris, Sabrina Carpenter, Magoo, Circles Around the Sun, and Southern, and Mo.
That's right.
I'm a victim of circumstance.
So, David, without further fondue, let us bring in Pete Mason.
Da-da-da.
Let's introduce Pete Mason to our audience, because there are people in the audience that don't know who he is, believe it or not.
That's shocking.
Oh, shocking news. Okay, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong. He is an educator. He is an author. Among his books include the Grateful Dead ABC Book of Letters, and that was illustrated by Ryan Kerrigan, yes. And it helps kids learn to read, David, with a Grateful Dead aesthetic. It's a very cool book. I saw it in what's known as a bookstore. We have the Strand here. And I noticed you took the song like Candyman was the letter C to emphasize the letter C. So see that, David?
You could read too, Tom.
I could read too.
Remember, reading is fundamental.
Reading is fun. David is also an
And we
educator.
really mean that the book was for kids of all ages so that everybody can learn a little something.
Right, even if you're 65, David. I'm a slow starter here. Anyway, Pete is the founder of Fan Art, and we spell that Phan, which was inspired by the band Fish. And
Hopefully he won't use that spelling in his books, though.
No, he
Boy.
won't.
I got made for it in a letter F.
Fan Art brings artists and vendors together. They have events. How often do these events occur, Pete?
I've had as few as 4, as many as 8 in a year.
Okay.
It kind of depends on what I have lined up. Like right now, I've got 3 on the horizon, 1 announced and 2 more on the horizon for 2026. That could be, I could have 1 more that summer. It's going to or 3. It kind of depends on where Fish goes, where Billy Strings ends up, or if there's just a need where bands in the town where I know a good promoter that can put together a show that is allows me to put together a show that's welcoming to all the vendors, promotes the vendors above all. We also have some music, food, drinks a little bit, and make sure that it's a nice community event.
Besides fish, what inspired you to put together those events?
I 100% fish because I wrote the first book I wrote, Fan Art, The Art of the Fans of Fish.
Right.
That was that was a compilation of all the art that I could find. I did that search from '04 to '08 or so,
Okay.
and fish was broken up at that time. So it was a good time. Everybody was going through their stuff. So I started collecting it, not like just images, good images of it, not necessarily items, but people mailed them sometimes. And we put the book together, and the a month before Fish reunited in 2009, I had a kickoff party. Didn't think much of it. We had a poster artist, we had a vendor, and then a month later, I was at a poster show all around surrounding fish. There was no real shakedown in Hampton, and
Okay.
the number of poster artists that were there. I was the only person with the book, and then slowly the people that promoted those type of shows stopped doing them, and I filled the void. And then I was like, you know what? Let's not just do posters. Let's do a little bit of everything. So we made sure, as long as it's original work and you're not just selling, your own posters that you bought from the band, and you're not just making a
Right.
buck. As long as it's original art, we keep doing it. So I've had the next show I have in New York City is number 73. And I'd say at least 50 of them have to be fish by this point, if not more.
Oh, impressive. And you also authored a fan food cookbook, a collection of recipes enjoyed by fish fans.
Yep. That was
Okay.
that one came together real quick in a year. Fans were hungry to be participating in things again, and
See that? See how we slipped that in there, David?
we got like
Yes,
100
I caught
recipes.
the double entendre.
Uh, and I think there's 80 recipes in the book. It's great.
Okay.
And a nice variety, everything from the serious stuff to the not so serious.
Okay. And then you also did the alphabet book for little fans, PHANS. And that's like the Dead book, only you learn to read with fish references.
Yep, that preceded the dead one. Fish had a tendency to have a themed set during their Labor Day run at Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Colorado.
Okay.
And one of the ones that we came up with was like, oh man, why don't they just spell out the alphabet? Well, that'd be great. And in the meantime, while they weren't doing that, I did, and it turned into a poster, and then made it into a book.
Okay.
Started the dead one right away, and got another one for another band coming out sometime next spring.
All right. Cool. Cool. And now you're on the board of the Mockingbird Foundation, yes?
Yes.
And
Yes.
David, that raises money for music education. Boy, there's a topic you know a little bit about, David.
Just a wee bit.
Mhm.
Yes. David has a
Yeah.
program called Empower for Music. David,
Nice.
Yes, sir.
well, tell us about Empower for Music.
I just want to make you sweat a little bit tonight.
I can't sweat. I'm wearing my black T-shirt tonight.
Yeah, I've been doing Empower for Music. We bring professional musicians into the New York City school system, and they do residencies and everything from band to keyboards, ukulele for the little ones, recorders, but not your normal recorder music. Everything has to have a point to it. So let's say the little ones are learning a C Jam Blues, a Duke Ellington song. So they get to play the tune, which is basically the note C, and they learn the lyrics, which are Down at Duke's Place, which Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald did. So they're learning to read, they're learning to speak, rhyme. It's great stuff. This is actually the 26th year. And it's a very interesting program because we've had people that, back in the day when the Allman Brothers came to New York, one of our trumpeters was in his band. So it's not just, put your fingers here, play some music. It's things like, what it's like at a sound check, what it's like backstage, on stage. So there's a lot of real life involved. So the kids they really enjoy it.
what does the Mockingbird Foundation do? What do they do specifically with music education in the schools?
Uh, we raise funds to donate grants throughout the year. We have two cycles throughout the year. It's a fairly competitive process.
Mm.
We've given out more, I think, believe more than just over, hoping I'm not miscounting this, just a little over $4 million or since 1997. The foundation has produced three three books, the Fish Companion 1, 2, and 3. The third one came out in 2016 or 18, and also produced a CD, Sharon in the Groove, which had, I gotta say, like, whether you like Fish or not, great album to check out. Hearing Jimmy Buffett do his version of Gumbo. There's the Stanford Marching Band is doing Golgi Apparatus. This barbershop quartet group called Fred did their song Poor Heart, and there's just a whole bunch of great ones. Like there's some Kids of Los Lobos are on the album. Anyway, so that came out in '01, and they also give out tour grants. So if Fish stops in 10 cities up and down the East Coast or whatever, every city there's a grant that's given to a worthy organization without them having to ask for it. So and for $1,000. So quite a bit goes out. Fans support us greatly. It's great being on the board and promoting music education and having fans support us in the process.
Right.
Well,
It's
that's great.
interesting, music education, of course, just not that your kids are going to be on stage at Carnegie Hall, but it also helps with math and social skills.
Oh,
People
yeah,
don't
absolutely.
people don't realize the depth of what a music education means. And it's interesting, David and I, we interview a lot of people from the UK, artists, and they all have very, very solid music educations. They know the history of music, they know how to read music notation because it's a staple in the public school system in the UK, yet in the United States, not at all, pretty much.
No, so one semester, freshman year usually, and if you want to join the bands, hope your school has a program for it.
Yeah, yeah. So tough stuff.
Yeah, it's very, very frustrating. The politics, well, let's not even go into that, but teachers union really isn't very interested in doing anything more than indoctrinating the kids in the way they teach. And so anything creative, music, sports, it's always on the back burner. So you have to
Yeah.
do it on your own to really make certain that something happens.
Well, David, if you teach young people music, they'll become critical thinkers.
What?
Yes. And they
Can't
may
have that.
can't have that. They might even question authority, for goodness sakes.
Oof.
Wow.
Jeez.
Strange as that might be. What we want to talk to you about also, you are the publisher of NYS Music. And of course, according to the NYS website, their mission is to support up and coming artists across the state of New York, David, giving writers and photographers a platform for live music coverage. Now, what I want to talk to you specifically, Pete, David and I, we noticed in the early double zeros under the Bloomberg administration, I guess it was, from about, what was Bloomberg, 2002, he came into office, that many of our musical colleagues were moving upstate. They were cashing out on their rent stabilized leases and or just sold their apartments. They started buying property in Hudson Valley, where they could set up home recording studios, raise a family, open venues that were artist friendly. As New York City was becoming unaffordable to artists. Now, of course, Woodstock and the surrounding area was always an artistic haven. Obviously, there was Woodstock in '69, but even before that, in the earliest 20th century, there were many art colonies up in the area. And of course, you had people like Carl Berger, who we had on the show, formed the Creative Music Coalition with Ornette Coleman. But it seems to David and I, that there is a real fertile musical community in Hudson Valley and in the Woodstock area. And it's quite the opposite now in New York City, where everyone has escaped. What do you cite, other than the reasons I spoke of, why the Hudson Valley became such a fertile place for artistic expression?
Um, I think the Hudson Valley is it just follows, the history of the geography of the Hudson River and the location there is. New York City is, not New York City is the first major settlement in
Right.
now New York State. And when people kind of got like, a little itchy, or they didn't want to be down there, or they got there, they immigrate there in 17, 1800s, and they're like, yeah, it's kind of packed. I don't really want to be here. Let's go up north.
Hmm.
And they find work up there, and they head up north, they head up the river. And I'm a teacher by day, so this part was kind of dorky. The Hudson River being completely flat all the way up to Albany is helped to settle all those little tiny towns. And that, with the roads that it got put in,
Hmm.
people can simply find, let's just get out of the city. Let's get out of the city. Let's go north. Let's go live in Ossing. Let's go live in Peekskill. Let's go live in Nyack, working your way north. And all those little enclaves that you mentioned, all those little towns and those little valleys, whether it's Brewster or Carmel or something over in Orange County, I'd say Deposit, they have a little something going on nearby in, there's a little town right next to uh, I'll come back. I happened to visit this little burg during when I was at Bethel, and
Okay.
all these little spots. Why do people keep going there? Because they either make it in the city and they get out while they can with their money intact, and they go and live their dream,
Yeah.
and they go and find the small city, the small town that they enjoy, and a house that's off the grid but not too far off the grid, so they can still take the train down to the city. And then there's the folks that are like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go move where it's more affordable. And we've had three things happen: 9/11, the financial crisis of '09, of '08,
Right.
and COVID. And those three things, there's three different waves of people moving out. I can think of some musicians that moved up after the financial crisis to Woodstock. Didn't really tell anybody, but they were just content up there because they're so close to New York City where they play so much. It's just an hour drive, give or take.
Mhm.
Um, and at the same time, um, folks are, as they get a little older, they're going to start settling down. They want a place to raise their kids. Raising a kid in the city is going to be expensive, daycare alone. And however schooling goes, where exactly do you want to live? So they find a small town up in the Catskills, up in the Conics, just right along the river.
Right.
And by going there, they are slowly populating the area. There's tons of folks I know that live in all those towns now, that would never have considered it before, because moving to the city after college was kind of like the general plan. Whether that city was Albany or Syracuse or New York City or Buffalo, depended on what your definition was. But those folks eventually have turned around and be like, yeah, we have to like go to the next step of life, and I don't make six figures to afford to live where I used to live in the Lower East Side. So
I noticed though that there are a lot of places to play outside of the city in the Hudson Valley where there really is nowhere to play in New York. At least a let's say a working musician, someone who is
mm,
dependent upon gigs, they're just not happening in the city anymore.
no.
So it seems to me, Tom gave me a list of a number of places up there, which actually plays, which actually allows for folks to play experimental music and more instrumental kinds of things, which I find very, very interesting.
Yeah, there's a fun, weird mix of venues, artists, bands, and like residents at some spots that you keep seeing pop up. And I'm not trying to plug anybody. I'm just trying to, all these venues are going to pop into my head, but places like the local Colony in Woodstock, Hudson Hall, the Crandall Theater in Hudson for this
Mhm.
some of the shows they do on top of the movies. There are all these old opera houses or new music venues or movie theaters, or just giant old barns that somebody can afford to renovate and turn into a venue. I don't know if that's Opus 40 by specifically, or if that was built from scratch, but that's got some aspect to it of, hey, I got an idea and it's all artistic, and let's bring some artists in. And they bring in some bands, and when they have it, I hear nothing but amazing things.
Hmm.
And then, Bearsville had been there since the 60s from Hoffman,
Yeah, I
right?
played there a number of
Yeah.
times.
And they have had I don't know. In the 90s, I first learned of him because of Fish, and then finally wanted to go in 2000s, and it was right around it was before Lizzie Van bought it. And when she did, I had no idea about the damage that happened from the water and everything, and all the renovations she did. It's amazing. Still tough to get people there because of the population, but now that Peter Shapiro and Dayglow are part of it, like that feels like there's like a little bit of a like a footprint in there, not just, marks around like, Bearsville and Bearsville being just past Woodstock. You're going to start getting, there already are a lot more bands playing that normally wouldn't be getting there, and they're getting some good crowds, and folks are realizing, oh, it's an hour from Albany, it's a little over an hour from the city, it's maybe 90 from Westchester. Come on up.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, some of the venues I'm thinking of, Basilica Hudson, I guess, was
hmm,
one. I think Quinn's. Trying to think of some others.
Falcon and Marlboro.
Okay.
They have a lot
Town
of good
crier.
shows. Town Crier Beacon. I know that it's just reopened up at the Chance Theater in Poughkeepsie. Some folks did pick that up and breathe some life into it. I think they're starting to they're in soft opening phase. My
Mhm.
term, not theirs, but there's uh there's quite a bit there's quite a bit all around. Like it satisfies the need to have to drive an extensive distance. Like I live just outside of Albany. Most music I want to see, I can see in Albany. It might be that, Billy String's coming on next Wednesday night. Not the most convenient night, but I get that the Saturday nights he'll be in the major cities. I've come to accept that, but that's why we see local music on weekends. But anybody that wants to see something, you can just wait and check the calendar. And there's going to be a lot of good shows coming probably within a half an hour of you if you just know where to look.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other places, Lace Mill, the Beverly. So tell us about NYS Music. What prompted you to found that platform?
Uh, I've been running the site for 10 years. And the way it started was I was running another magazine that was specific just to upstate, and where's the upstate line stop? Well,
Yeah,
the
what is
publisher
officially upstate?
to me it's north, it's 84 north, from
Okay.
anything north of I-84. Um, some people say it's Tappan Zee North, some people say it's Central Park and North.
Okay.
Depends on where you grew up and what you know. It can be the entire state minus New York City for all I care. But I was running the site Upstate Live. I was the not the publisher. There was, the owner of it, and he would, nothing on New York City. I'm like, half the population of the state lives there. Can we just please consider it? No. Then he ghosted us for most of 2014. And 2015 came around and it became, all right, screw this. I can't do this anymore. Let's just start something new. And all the contributors agreed, yep, let's just shift over. We're going to do a new site in NYS Music. Kicked it off March 1st of 2015. We celebrated our 10-year anniversary earlier this year. We have stuck to our roots and our cause, which is to highlight up and coming bands from around the state as well as those passing through. So if a band was in Massachusetts and they have 7 shows in New York State over the next month, we're going to mention them, highlight them, maybe do an interview. That slowly, the site grew quite a bit, and to have, not just artists that were up and coming, but also, hey, let's cover the big guys at SPAC. Let's cover the big guys coming to Darien Lake and Central Park and, major festivals, whether it's Bonnaroo or whether it's in New York State, like Gathering in the Vibes was quite a bit, or Camp Bisco, or, Fisher's Magnaball.
Hmm.
And we made sure to cover everything in every part of the state. No, we're not ignoring Watertown. We're not going to ignore Plattsburgh. We're still going to keep an eye on what's there, just as much as we get stuff coming in from Syracuse and Buffalo and Ithaca on a regular basis. Um, and it's, we're genre wide, it's every genre. And I try to make it a point, every month or so, we kind of go through the site and double check and like, have we missed anything lately? Have we not covered anything? And it's like, well, okay, somehow we've been light on rap this month. Let's make sure we get a couple articles on that. We had 7 classical articles. Well, that's a lot. But I will say, and I kind of bringing that up for a reason, is there are so many symphony orchestras in this state. Some of them are super small. Like there's Albany Symphony Orchestra, they've won Grammys, but and the Binghamton Philharmonic, who are proud sponsors of. But there is the Southern Finger Lakes, Symposium, and there's Ithaca has their own. Rochester, there's a couple of the Hudson Valley Symphony Orchestra, which I only learned about 3 months ago. There are so many others to uncover. Glens Falls has their own orchestra. It doesn't. That's the reaction I have. Exactly, Tom. It's just like, what? This doesn't like it. Like, how do we not know about this? And I know it's a niche of music, and it's not really my music that I would go out and seek out too often, unless they were playing a composition I loved or a conductor I knew. But to find out that there's all of this laying around, what else is there out there that we're not finding? And that's where we get into DIY shows and
Yes.
folks that are having these under the radar shows. They are far more prevalent, and I get their DIY, so they're not exactly looking for press, but eventually it's like, wow, you guys were the ones that uncovered this band, and holy cow, you guys got these two guys to play here for 50 people, and and whatever. Uh, we keep coming across like a wide amount of music. I was just talking to a guy from Rochester the other day, and there's a woman out there. She had some country hit in the 40s. She's still alive, and now we're gonna work on a profile of her. Like, she's out there. Who's the next big country music singer coming from New York? I couldn't tell you who it is. I just know we have our own Country Music Hall of Fame that's updated on a regular basis, and
Huh.
the fact that our state has that. I mean, country, for what it's worth, is probably the most popular genre for
No, I know
the
I
nation.
went to the Nashville Country Music Hall of Fame, but I've never
Yeah,
been to the New York one.
it's in Cortland, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, if you think
There's a
about
little
it, there
bit of
were so
everything.
many country bars in Manhattan. What, the Lone Star originally started that
Mm.
way. What was there? There was one over on the west side. City Limits, I think was the name of it. And yeah, so the whole
And then
country
Eric
scene.
Ambel had his place for years on Avenue B.
Which one
Can't
was
think of the
that?
name. I can't think of the name of it. But yes, and then we had a little movement in the late 90s. I don't know if you remember. It's a long time ago. We had the Lower East Side Opry. I guess that was the influence of Ryan Adams. Everybody wanted to be Ryan Adams and Lucinda Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they just opened up Lucinda's.
Right, Lucinda just opened up a place on Avenue A. My friend Shani Howen curates country music nights on Monday. Interesting, you talk about the role of the press. I mean, we're all ancient enough to remember when record reviews and reviews made or broke an artist.
Mhm.
When I was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they had a 10-page letter under glass from Pete Townsend, who was blasting the reviewer from Rolling Stone for for giving Quadrophenia 3 stars instead of 5 stars. But
How do you
and
not
you
give that 4 stars just for the name alone? Come
right,
on.
exactly, David. Well, David's an old school Who fan. He doesn't you don't like Daltrey with his curly hair and his fringes.
No, I'm definitely a '60s Who
He's a
fan.
60s, so obviously we
All
argue
the
about the Who.
singles.
But it just shows you that a bad review could wreck a career. And I started off my journalism career as a freelance writer, writing for Amplifier, Spin, Rolling Stone, and pretty much that's all extinct now. What about the challenges that NYS faces? Because we live in such a fragmented media world. It's not like you have a newspaper or a magazine like Rolling Stone that sits on your desk for a week
Mhm.
and you finally get through all the articles.
Well, I for the first 5 years there were more cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and during COVID there were less cooks in the kitchen because folks had to go their own way and deal with their own things, and a lot of life happened in 2020. And that was around the time that we kind of restructured things. And myself, one of our editors, Tim, who I went to Syracuse with, and Melissa, who handles our marketing and social media, the three of us and a few others, we just kind of made sure to streamline it content wise and meeting the mission. Up and coming bands from New York, up and coming artists that are looking for coverage, as well as the writers and photographers who are looking for their first start. Um, and that was kind of where we started out from. Like, when I started writing, it was because I was like, oh, I can get a free ticket for this concert. I just have to write about it.
Yeah,
I could do
right.
that.
You get the free
That was
food
the
and the
start.
free tickets, right? And the drink
That
ticket.
was my start, right?
Free
But
CDs.
Life is great.
it worked out so nicely. I never fashioned myself as a writer. I was um, you know, 1 or 2 years out of grad school when the opportunity to review shows came up. And then when I published fan art, it became a little bit easier, and it was like, okay, hey, I'll cover this. And bands started to reach out. Hey, the Brew from, I want to say they're from Boston or something, or Rhode Island. They were starting to go on tour. They were playing a Modem, multiple sets. So we'd review them and interview them. And you mentioned the make or break, reviews. I never wanted to break anybody or say, yeah, man, this is terrible. We're going to tear it apart in 300 words.
Right.
It would just be like, if we couldn't find something nice to say, if you couldn't just report like, hey, here's a new thing. It's for fans of this, you'll like this. Here's a good track. And if we kept it short, you can get the gist of it, but we didn't want to leave anybody to say, hey, we put all this effort into this album and this outlet's perfect for us. And they just destroyed us.
Well,
So
that's very interesting that you bring up that topic because that's a real bone I had to pick with my editors, and I've gotten fired from some good magazines, namely allmusic.com, because they said I wrote too much about music. Now, my feeling as a music journalist, and you seem simpatico with this, is not for me to judge whether a record or band is good or not. I'm here to report. I'm going to talk to the artist. I'm going to describe the music as best I can. I'll give references, and then you, the audience, you make a decision whether or not you like the music.
yeah, I do tell our writers when we have a new orientation, people join us like, please don't pitchfork this review.
Yeah.
Do not, we're not looking to skewer it or say why the next version of this is terrible. It's somebody it might be the new Sabrina Carpenter album.
Hmm.
I don't know if she's from New York. It didn't matter because the intern wanted to write it and they were passionate about it. I'm like, go for it. And it wasn't like, a gushy intern writing it and so super crazy. It was really good and informative. I didn't know it. I don't really know anything about her except for a couple times she'd been on SNL. So I read this and I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. This is interesting. Explains the cover of the album and everything. And even if we did skewer it, even if we did want to like, go and pitchfork it, we would what are we winning on there? Like
Right.
hoping
What's
she
the
sees it
point?
on social media and is like, oh geez, guys, sorry for the only 2 stars. She doesn't care. But the Sabrina Carpenter from Rotterdam, New York, who's just put together an EP at a local studio, and we're one of her first press. I'm gonna listen to that and make sure it's like, okay, let's make sure we write a decent review and assign it to somebody or write it myself, and that we're getting out like, hey, here's the new thing, and here's something to check out, and here's a new album, and here's where they're from. Because a lot of these, everybody says, all bands started out local once, and that can be true and as a neat mantra and catchphrase. But then if you start actually paying attention to those bands that are local now and support them now, you might actually see them get big later on. And I've seen some bands go from the local band local bar band and then blow up from there.
Hmm.
I'll give you 2 examples of that. There was this band Dirty Paris that played Albany a lot, and there was 2 guys. They split up, and Chris ended up in Colorado, ended up joining the Magic Beans. And while they just announced they're breaking up, he has been their staple bassist for 13 of their 15 years. He's phenomenal. The fans love him and great, and he's a great dude. Got to reconnect with him in Colorado in July. He went on to bigger and better things, and just knowing, oh yeah, there's this band Dirty Paris, and here's these guys in it. It's just 2, so it's easy to remember them.
Mm.
And then you've got I forget his name. There's a band. Uh, there was a band called The Assortment of Crayons from New
Hmm.
Paltz, and they were around about 2013 or so. They were like a post-college band, didn't get too far off the ground, but the guy that was in that band is now in the band's called Magoo. They're like the
Yes, I've
next
heard
big
of it.
thing coming out of Colorado. And I was like, you're in Magoo. That is insane. And he's like, yep, we're gonna be out in New York in the spring. I'm like, well, let's talk about this. This is fantastic. And from what I've heard, it was like, hey, yeah, we need a guitarist. You want to join this band? And he didn't realize they were about to blow up, and they blew up. So very proud of him. The great cover of Everlong. It's the only thing that pops to mind right now. But that's like that's what I'm far more interested in is the long haul payoff of, let's profile these artists. Another great one, Michaela.
McCraven.
No, the harpist. Davis? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Michaela Davis is a harpist, but she plays a lot with Circles Around the Sun. She jams on the thing. She has her own band, Southern Star. She's from Rochester. We had articles on her when we were in Upstate Live in 2012, and she was just starting out, just out of high school and starting to play. Somewhere around 2016, someone connected her with Bob Weir's manager, and she did a cover of a Dead song that started to take off, and I think it was on the Day of the Dead tribute album. And then now she's just touring nationally, with Circles Around the Sun and Southern Star together, making some great music together. And you never suspect a harp.
Interesting. Well, again, if you pitchfork an artist, then your audience is going to take their entertainment dollars somewhere else.
Yeah,
They're not going to go out to hear live music.
yeah.
They're not going to go
I'd
out to a
rather
club.
give people a reason to go out and spend live music rather than hem and haw and sit at home and be like, I don't know, this band doesn't sound so hot. I'd rather be like, hey, there's three bands playing tonight in Albany. Pick one. Instead of there's three bands playing tonight. Here's the good one. Here's the one that paid us an extra $50 to promote them. Like, if it's New York City and somebody does that, that's one thing. But if it's like Utica, there's only a couple of spots you're going to see, live original music. You might
Right.
see a cover band or, cover band or tribute band out there. But
Tribute, yeah.
yeah, we try to, unless the tribute band stays so true, they're like, Almost Queen, Joe Russo's Almost Dead, Dark
Oh,
Star.
David and I had a very interesting almost encounter with a member of Almost Queen. We're in the West 11th Street Bar in New York City, one of the few venues that will host original music now. And a guy walks in with a big bouffant and flared trousers and a velvet jacket. David and I go, oh, look, you got a load of Freddie, John Deacon over there. And then one of our musical colleagues tapped us on the shoulder. Do you know who that is? That's such and such. He's the bass player in Almost Queen. I'm like, well, gee, he wears his he wears his costume and on this in real life. Says, yeah, well, he's pulling down about six figures. And then I had been in London not too long ago. Well, now it's long ago, and I was walking by the Hammersmith and there was Almost Queen on the marquee. And I was like, wait a second, my Queen live record, Live Killers, that was recorded here. And now there are tribute bands. That's one of the things David and I have a big bone to pick with is what's happened in New York City is the proliferation of tribute bands.
All over.
They're all over. It's funny. Well, maybe I'll go on record. I don't care. The Bitter End, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right? Legendary venue. Now they host tribute bands, and one of the members of a tribute band who also runs the club was saying, "Well, there'll never be an artist like Tom Petty." And I said, "Well, you know why there'll never be an artist like Tom Petty? Because there's a goddamn Tom Petty tribute band on stage." Now,
Yeah.
suppose it's like, I don't know, 1975, and Tom Petty's working his way up the ladder, and he comes to the bitter end, and they say, "Sorry, Tom, we have a Hoagie Carmichael tribute band on tonight. We can't host you." Well, then there's no Tom Petty. And that was one of the things that's what's really soured David and I on New York. But when we go up to play in Hudson Valley and Woodstock in that area, we're just amazed that you can have a folk act and an experimental artist back to back, and they get the same reception, the same attention.
Yeah, I think when you're outside of a population center, you're
Hmm.
gonna find a much more unique uh array of music. And since folks are moving up there, they're making these concentrated little pockets of all this music instead of just one big scene.
Right.
Now, the Albany scene, we have just lost a venue, Larkin Hi-Fi, and they were struggling to just to get their cabaret license for many political reasons, which I'll be writing about this evening. So you can read that tomorrow on nysmusic.com.
I will check
The
that out.
we see a lot of tribute acts popping by,
Yeah.
and not so many touring acts, simply because the cost has gone up for that. And then you got bands like Mo who will still do that. When I see their tour announcement, I take a look, and knowing the guys a little more than some bands, because Vinny lives right very close. Two of them live in Utica, or one somebody or Al lives in Utica. Chuck lives down in Woodstock. We're kind of like right in between them all, so we can bump into them. Their tour is like, okay, you're gone for a week down here, and then you're coming back. and then you're gonna take a week off, and you're gonna take a week, and you're gonna go out here and come back, rather than week, because they're in their 50s. I know what it's like when I'm trying to drive my car. I can drive to the Adirondacks and back and not feel any pain. But if it's like I have to drive to DC to go see that show, all right, well, can we mix up drivers a little bit because my back's killing me.
But you're
And
a young fella, Pete. Come on.
I appreciate that. I'm 47 and
I got shoes older than you.
sorry,
Cut it out.
aging here. Um, but all the bands I listen
I
to
hear
are
you.
they're my age or older, and I understand why some of them are calling it quits or not able to
The
tour.
rigors, yeah, certainly the rigors. I'm curious to know your opinion. What is it? David and I was saying to a colleague of mine, there used to be a sign in the back of the bitter end: if you play blues or covers, we'll cut your electricity. Why do you think? Why do you think tribute bands have usurped original music? Why is that?
I think there's a psychological aspect to it relating to
Mm.
COVID, because this popped up only around this wasn't like this before COVID.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Yes, yeah.
so you have a couple factors. You have bands that are throwing a towel in because they nope, can't afford this, guys. Or hey, COVID restructuring, we're gonna move in with their parents up north, and nope, now we have a kid. Guess that band is out of a bassist, and then they don't replace him, and that's it. So changing priorities for musicians during it all definitely factored in, and the economy taking a downturn as a result, and the way that concerts had to be in 2020.
Sure.
I don't know how many drive-in shows I went to, probably close to 10, and they were okay. But we knew at the time, it was like, okay, so this is like it, right? Next year we're gonna go back to regular music and indoors and stuff. And when we got there, we got there. We didn't want to rush it and make ourselves sicker. But going back to MSG felt pretty ethereal when I was back there in April of 22. So in terms of why we have all these tribute bands, it's not just the bands or musicians are reprioritizing. It's folks are looking for something accessible and comforting, and they're looking for something to give them a little, harness a little hook on, reality. So
Okay.
if it's like, hey, there's a No Doubt tribute band, and you didn't realize that you wanted to go see a No Doubt tribute band, but you grew up in the 90s, and you're like, I'm gonna go. I don't even know if this exists. I just made that up.
No,
If
okay.
there's this No Doubt tribute band and you want to go see it, and you're not going to be able to see No Doubt anytime soon, well, go see it. There's also the fact that everybody from Gen X who was in their teens in the 90s, they're now in their 40s.
Right.
I'm all for checking out a new band, but like I'm not gonna dive into a band so deep that I'm like, yep, got another favorite pastime, hun. Guess what? Like I've got the bands that I love and I grew up with, and I have there's tribute acts I would see. I would see a Nine Inch Nails tribute band because I love them in high school and I've seen them a few
Okay.
times. I wouldn't actively see them since Nine Inch Nails is touring. But so when there's bands that are no longer around, like the Doors, soon the Who, and others, if there's a really good tribute band, folks can be like, yeah, I do want to see that. Especially if there's somebody in the band who was in the actual act or has some sort of
Right.
credits.
That's well
I
now
think there's
you
some psychological,
the psychological
for
reasoning makes
instance,
sense to me, yeah.
now McCartney's really lost his voice.
Yeah.
However, he still sells out because I think what happens is people are back in time. I think music of all the arts is the only art where you can actually, when you listen to a song, you can tell what you were wearing, where you were, who you were with the very first time. If you go to the Louvre, see the Mona Lisa, and then you see a picture of Mona Lisa, oh, I was wearing a blue suit, and no, that's not going to happen. However, there's with a tribute band, just like a McCartney, you're standing there, but you're back in time. So I can
Mhm.
understand it from that point of view. What I can't understand is bad musicians playing. That's something that I never could understand, even in popular bands.
Mhm.
So for me, I understand the tribute thing. I really think for folks that may never be able to see a certain artist because they've passed on or they've retired, there's a it's like a Big Mac. It's comfort, and
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
how I see it.
Well, it's interesting also. I had a discussion with a psychologist once. We were talking about tribute
You
bands,
need it
and
more than once, Tom.
I do need a psychologist, yes. But they were saying that even if it's a bad Grateful Dead band, when you go see the Grateful Dead cover band, you hear the record. You don't necessarily hear them when they're doing, Uncle John's Band or some of their,
Yeah.
signature songs. It's almost that experience that you don't really hear the band. It's just like a friend of mine just went to see The Who. And look, I love The Who. I love the 70s Who. David loves the 60s Who. But I think he got caught up in the emotion. You go to Madison Square Garden, there's a lot of energy. There's multimedia images of The Who in their glory years from Quadrophenia to Tommy and all that. So you don't hear the fact that Roger can't sing anymore. And Pete's just phoning in, and you can see that on a YouTube video. But when you're there surrounded by the pomp and circumstance, you don't
Mhm.
necessarily gauge that. It's interesting to me that New York audiences who would not tolerate cover and tribute bands now are one of the biggest markets for cover and tribute bands. But it's also a different culture here. It's a TikTok culture. There's a lot of foreign people, foreign elite people living in New York City now.
Mhm.
It's not the blue collar artist metropolis that it once was. And that's funny because when David and I are upstate in Hudson Valley, we feel like we're more in New York City than we do when we're down in New York City, with the exception, of course, there's no fresh air in New York City.
Mm.
This is true.
So
Yeah.
interesting, you
It's
know,
a
interesting
it, it's
dynamic.
it's definitely something ramping up here where it's tough to shy away from it.
Yeah.
I always took, you know, tribute to be, oh, that's what bands should do on Halloween when they put their musical costume on. And we saw a band, Hilltop, great live, great originals, and they did an original set first, and then they did a great funk set, deep cuts, and then brought up some horns for some stuff that was a little more regular, and it was phenomenal. That's kind of where the tribute music should stay, is occasional from a band who wants to pay tribute to their favorites. Fish. The year that David Bowie died, they did all of Ziggy Stardust for Halloween.
Sure, it's different.
And
Yeah.
that's
And they
great.
did it in their own way, which is
Yeah.
really a tribute to David Bowie because David Bowie never did anything the same way twice. So if you
Hmm.
really want to do a David Bowie tribute, instead of putting on an orange wig and singing, Ziggy played guitar, interpret it yourself.
Precisely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense to us, David.
Nothing makes sense to me anymore in the
Nothing
music
makes
industry,
sense.
quite frankly.
Anyway, Pete, before we let you go, what does the future of NYS music hold? What do you hope to accomplish? Or just keep
Well,
doing what you're doing?
we are going to keep doing what we're doing because we know it's
Okay.
been working. And as long as traffic on the site increases and bands keep coming to us saying, hey, we saw that you did this, we'd love to help you out. Or I have an intern um, say, hey, my friend was an intern with you in the fall. I'd love to intern in the spring. And, as long as there's good word of mouth there, and I know that
Yeah.
the training that's provided and the opportunities provided on the site, whether it's internship or just somebody in their 20s who got a camera, or somebody in their 40s who wants to start writing reviews, or as I had yesterday, a retiree reached out and said, hey, I'd love to contribute something to your site. I have 1,000 published articles on this website. And I'm like, oh, cool. All right. Well, can you send me a couple and let's get started?
Yeah.
Because I'd rather, I don't have a blanket yes policy, but I definitely have a tendency to like, yeah, sure, let's try that. Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than having somebody or a partner who's just like, no, let's be careful. Like, I have nothing really to risk here. We're not going to lose any money on this. We're a 501(c)(3), so we have a little bit of fundraising that comes in. We applied for a
Right.
New York State Council on the Arts grant. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing. This month, we have our final 10-year anniversary event. We've had two others over the course of the year. This one will be at Lark Hall day after Thanksgiving, but Black Friday, with Dark Side Skinny Dippers and Seas Atlantis. They're both from Seas Atlantis is Glens Falls, Dark Side Skinny Dippers from Plattsburgh. They are the most recent winners of our annual March Madness series, which is where we get 32 or 64 bands together and have a fun, hey, everybody, kind of choose your favorites. And then at the end, it's like, who are these 4 bands? And that's the point, because we want people to say, who are these bands? And if you haven't heard of them,
Right.
now's a good time to go check them out. Dark Side Skinny Dippers and Seas Atlantis. They're two unique bands in their own right. We're gonna have a nice show that night, bring out some new merch, have a good part of the Albany team there, and do some fundraising leading up to Giving Tuesday. Because what we've been doing here for years, we were doing before we were 501c3, and hopefully with a grant, we can take it to another level. Have a couple of paid folks that are contributing up-to-date news and some commentary on a regular basis, in addition to what we're already doing, just so we have something a little more slightly solidified, and a machine to make it a machine that'll run of itself. Because we're pretty darn close to that. We have 50 to 60 folks around the state that have been contributing writing and photography for years, and always bringing in new folks. We're an open access point to music journalism and photojournalism around the state. So
super, man. And you
keep going with
definitely have the Village Voice vibe. Is when I see something in NYS music, I actually get interested in it.
Wow, thank you. That is a compliment.
All right. Anyway, great stuff, Pete. Thanks for being on the show. We'll get this up in a week or two so you can exploit. We'll send you links and you can break the internet like a Kardashian. And I will put together a playlist of some of the bands you mentioned. So
absolutely, that's awesome.
That's awesome. So you're doing God's work. And what did Hunter Thompson say to Ralph Steadman? Don't become a writer, Ralph. You'll only bring shame on the family.
That's why my bio teacher's first.
Very good. Well, that'll be my epithet. All right, Pete. Thanks for talking. See you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
you.
Got
it, man. Bye-bye.
In the criminal justice system, sexually based offenses are considered especially heinous. In New York City, the dedicated detectives who investigate these vicious felonies are members of an elite squad known as the Special Victims Unit. These are their stories.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
All right, thank you, Peter Mason. David, let's talk about Peter Mason's playlist, which you curated under the direction of Peter Mason.
That's correct. So we're doing a Billy String song with Willie Nelson, tune by the Grateful Dead, something by Fish, Jimmy Buffett, Mo, Sabrina Carpenter. I had no idea that I would ever play a Sabrina Carpenter song, but yeah. Magoo, Michaela Davis, Dirty Paris, which, when you think about it, we were talking about croissants. Still, I'd go to Paris any day and have one of their dirty croissants.
Last time I was in Paris, it was clean.
Does your dig that? Oh? Let's dig it. I thought you said your dog did not bite.
Is that a snot, night talk?
And then we have a tune by The Brew.
All righty. So thank you, Peter, for being on the show. Thank you for curating our playlist, and hope to talk to another NYS correspondent soon on jazz and avant-garde music and what's happening in New York State. My name is Tomaso Semioli. Thanks for listening.
My name is David C. Gross. And again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Men of the square table. Your best friend gets dumped by a girl. How long is she off limits?
You gotta wait at least a month.
No, not a month.
Well, I was always taught you gotta wait 2 Saturdays.
No.
Or a new hairdo, whichever comes first.
Yeah. You don't get it. When she's breaking up with your best friend, she's breaking up with you. Forever.
What if she's drop dead gorgeous?
Okay, 6 months.
Yeah, that's
more like it.
A great taste of Miller Lite, always a good call.
You gotta fucking be kidding me! How dare you call yourselves professional?
Through unforeseen circumstances, this show will remain on the air until further notice.